If you carry a firearm and discharge your weapon in self-defense, you could face hundreds of thousands of dollars in legal fees and expenses. So carry the protection of CCW Safe, Self-Defense Legal Services membership. Upfront payment of all criminal and civil defense costs with no out-of-pocket for members.
We are back. I'm Chris Evans, the CEO of Survival Dispatch, joined tonight by my good friend Randy Nance, back home in Texas, combat wounded Green Beret. And below him, our good friend Jeff MD, 26-year CIA case officer, author extraordinaire, affectionately known as 007. And 00711 may be with us tonight. He's still dealing with some consternation over there in Pakistan. So before we jump in with the conflicted question of the night, I want to announce and congratulate the winners of the Carnival draw. So Yvonne Keniston, Len Pisciata, Pisciotta, apologies for butchering your name, Donna Meisner, who I recognize her name, she's one of our guardians, Mark Emery, and Thomas Sickler. So let's go from the top. Yvonne Keniston, Len Pisciotta, maybe that's better, Donna Meisner, Mark Emery, Thomas Sickler. If you all check your email, I've already given y'all lifetime guardian memberships for SDN. And the guys at Carnival will be reaching out to you. They're going to send you a bunch of Carnival meat and some swag like the shirt you can see behind Randy, matching hat, et cetera, but congratulations to our winners. With that being said, let's get into actually, before we get into the conflict question, let me tell you what the topic is tonight. We have a fairly long sit rep, but we're going to be discussing dissent equals terrorism. And this started clearly under the Biden installation and has been kicking off for years now in Europe. It's absolutely brutal. So, geez, I'm freaking knocking shit out here. I just knocked my mic off and back on again. Anyway, let's try and get this right this time. So before we do the sit rep and the main topic, let's hit the conflicted question, conflictedthegame.com. 14-card game set in apocalyptic scenarios. Most questions have some element of morality, hence the name conflicted. With electricity gone, refrigeration and prepackaged food were things of the past. How do you conserve meat and other foods for long-term usage without modern equipment? I say you just skip that. Did we do this one?
We did this one.
Are you sure?
Yep. Because remember we talked about smoking the meat, jerky in it, salt. Isn't it the same? I mean, I don't know if it was but it's along the same lines. How do you preserve your food with no?
You know what? I think you're right. I think my mistake. See, totally lost my mind right now. So let me pull up another one here. If you had lost all your loved ones and there was nothing else to fight for, how would you keep on surviving the apocalypse? What would drive you to keep on going if all you held dear was already gone? And sometime during the broadcast here, I'll make sure that I get that plugged into our brief. So, man, we're just starting with all kinds of.
Well, I wish I'd had time to look at it before we start. I would have been able to say, hey, wait a minute, we did this.
It's all good because from here on in, we're going to excel at raising your blood pressure tonight. And it starts with this one here. Islamists have taken over a shopping center in London, accosting police officers and yelling at Muslims who are not joining them. Allah is coming for you. And this person who posted this says, this can no longer be tolerated. Enough is enough. There's a reason that we called this 144 episode series The Long War. We are at war, whether or not the do-gooders, the woke progressives, or anybody else wants to believe it. We are at war. And until people get that through their skull, this situation is only going to get worse. 30 seconds.
Every time you buy a coffee, you are finding a bullet. That is killing a Palestinian kid. If you are a Muslim buying Starbucks, shame on you, and Allah is coming for you. I'm not scared of you. I'm not scared of you. You're a genocide supporter, you listen. You're a genocide supporter. Go and vote for ideas. Come on. Palestine!
So just out of curiosity, Randy, that asshole who said, "I'm not scared of you," do you think he should have got some 1980s style policing?
Oh, for sure. You know, people that say that, certainly, as everybody always knows, always the loudmouths are rarely the really tough guy. You know, it just for some reason seems to go hand in hand. There are some anomalies. And of course, like we always said, even in SF, there's a 10% rule, right? There's always 10% of the people that get through that shouldn't for whatever reason. And however, you know, that, you know, but the fact is, as I mentioned on the last show, I believe it was, or at least in the last week, trust me, these are the same guys that are causing stuff like when we were in Iraq, and I'm sure in Afghanistan was the same way, because it's just a human nature thing. But as soon as we rolled this guy up, he was pissing all over himself. He might even defecated himself.
Right.
Did. And crying, you know, and all scared. It's just ridiculous. But they know right now he knows he's not going to get in trouble and he's protected. The cops are there. If anything, if one of us was to attack him, you're the one that's going to go to jail.
Oh, yeah.
Of course, it's like the keyboard warrior. I'm more than happy to run my mouth at that time.
There you go. I got a private message from somebody, by the way, who said, "Randy is off the X. Tell him to move to the right."
Oh, yeah. I was going farther and farther, wasn't it?
Yeah. So, Jeff, I've got more videos queued up like this one, but why is it that the woke liberal do-gooders just can't get their head wrapped around the fact that these people are telling us what their intentions are, and it ain't good?
Because if they admit it or acknowledge it publicly or even to themselves, they are morally obligated to do something about it. And they're weak people. So the way you can justify doing nothing is to pretend there is nothing needs to be done.
Fair enough. Your audio is a little bit low there, Jeff. I don't know if you want to turn it up, or I can do it from the back end as well. But moving on to the next video that will raise people's blood pressure. Palestinian Muslims in Europe. Defeating Israel means defeating the U.S. Defeating Israel means defeating Canada. It's Israel first and everyone else is next. 18 seconds.
Defeating the U.S., defeating Israel means defeating Canada. This settlement will exist on the basis of the indigenous people and the black people.
So, Randy or Jeff, either one of you, if these guys are so freaking tough, why do they always have to wear masks?
Well, here's the problem, you know, that we have is, you know, where is this? Do you know where this was?
This is somewhere in Europe.
Okay. But, you know, they're still the mouthpiece of the Middle East, right? And this message is being pumped from there. And that's one of the things I will say about Islam, right? They're kind of like, if you're, we'll put it to some army terms too. If you're a group, right? But man, we didn't really do that as much, but if you were in Ranger Battalion, certainly your younger ones, right? And you're in 1st Battalion, you're there in Savannah, and one of your buddies or you get in a fight in a bar and they yell out Ranger, every Ranger in the building is now going to come to that exact spot. And they stick together. SEALs do the same thing. Well, I'm going to transfer that to Islam. One of the things that Islam does in the entire globe is it sticks together. And so it moves on this message. And we hear this internal message coming from them from the Middle East, now through Europe, even to America. That is what the message from Islam is right now. And people should take note, because it won't take very long to go from Europe to here. They're already cooking up here, and we're watching it in real time.
Yeah. Jeff, your thoughts on, I mean, they're telling everybody exactly who they are.
Yeah.
You're on mute, Jeff.
I hit my microphone.
No.
Weak people don't want to hear that because they can't do anything about it. You know, they're cuckolds. You know, some guy is banging their wife and they can't do anything about it, so they're just going to pretend it isn't happening. And you know, and Randy's right. These guys are so brave. Why are they covering their faces? Because they're not brave. They're a bunch of wusses, and if push comes to shove, they know they'd get their asses kicked, and they use intimidation as opposed to real force. And what we need is the Christians in the world to say, yeah, we're not buying this crap anymore. Bite me. It's like in the previous one where the guy goes, every dollar you spend here is another bullet, you know, used again, Gaza. I would say, great, give me $100 worth of coffee, please.
Right.
You know, can I buy like a pallet full? I don't even like this stuff, but if it pisses you off, I'll buy twice as much.
There you go. Yeah. Well, check this one out. This one's even closer to home. So Robbie Starbuck, they're literally telling you they're conquerors. You have to be willfully blind to not see what they're doing. They're intentionally having as many kids as they can so they can win unbreakable political power, where Dems have to give them everything they demand. Total insanity. Basim Sabri at a Somali event in Minnesota. We're conquering blocks in the 5th, 10th, 8th, 9th precincts. He owns Minnesota's Somali Mall. 55 seconds.
One more thing that I wanted to say, that, you know, this community is growing, and we are getting a lot stronger here in South Minneapolis area, moving and conquering many of the blocks within the 5th precinct area, or the 10th ward and 8th ward, and the 9th as well. I am very much looking forward to have a much more involved community members and more investments within our community, within the leadership of the Somalis and the brothers who live in the area. I want to see.
I got to stop it right there. So, I mean, they're overtly not just telling us what they're doing. They're bragging about this, and they don't care that it's going out to the public. It's infuriating that anybody who calls himself an American could think that this is okay and that it's not an invasion.
You know, can you think a white politician or a white community leader, or let's say even a Christian pastor, white Christian pastor could get up in this country today in the United States of America and say conquering anything by blocks? You imagine the outrage we would hear. And this guy's talking about conquering blocks. I mean, it's just, you know, verbiage matters.
Yeah, it sure does, Jeff.
Well, he's not even Somali. I mean, you look at him ethnically, he's not Somali. He's probably
Egyptian.
He's probably a Palestinian or a Lebanese guy. He's just using them because he wants to make money off of them.
He looks very Egyptian to me.
Yeah, could be Egyptian.
Some of the Egyptians that I've known, but either way, I mean, we are at war, and we're going to have to find a way to actually fight this war and stop rolling over for this shit. I saw somebody say, you know, when people say this country was built on immigrants, and they did this whole thing where they said it was built on people who had something to offer, who wanted to be part of the American dream and wanted to contribute to the United States. These fuckers don't want to contribute anything except for to themselves. And the number of people from third world shitholes who end up on welfare rolls is insane. Then add to the fact that these pricks just stole $9 billion since Tim Walz's been in office, 2017 to now. $9 billion. I'm trying to remember the young man's name. He did an expose today on all these daycare centers in Minneapolis. Not one of them has kids. They were throwing off all the properties. There's no cars or anything. Here's one that got 2.4 million last year. Here's one that got whatever. It's complete and utter theft. So let's just throw this in, because tonight's topic is, you know, dissent equals terrorism. Listen to this. Straight from a George Orwell script, and this is from Lara Logan, by the way. These people are terrifying. If that does not motivate you, I don't know what could. Richard says, so here we have Ursula von der Leyen. I don't know if it's pronounced that way or not, but lion sounds good to me. Describing free speech as a virus and censorship as its vaccine. 1 minute, 30 seconds.
And finally, it takes resilience.
Need audio.
Say that again, Jeff.
We need audio. Can't hear her say anything.
I can hear the audio fine. Can anybody else? I've turned it off for now, but
at least I can read the words.
Yeah, but I couldn't hear anything she said.
I could barely faintly hear it.
Yeah,
I had to read the words. Yeah.
That's full volume. We'll just do this instead. And finally, it takes resilience. As technology evolves, we need build up societal immunity around information manipulation. Because research has shown that pre-bunking is much more successful than debunking. Pre-bunking is basically the opposite of debunking. In short, prevention is preferable to cure, perhaps, if you think of information manipulation as a virus instead of treating an infection once once it has taken hold, pardon me. That is debunking. It's much better to vaccinate so that the body is inoculated. Pre-bunking is the same approach because disinformation relies on people passing it on to others. It is essential that people know what malinformation influence is and what the techniques are behind it. And as the knowledge goes up, our chances of being influenced goes down. And that builds up the society resilience that we will need. So basically, this is a WEF clown who's, one of the highest offices in Europe saying that they need to pre-bunk stuff instead of debunk stuff. A straight up George Orwell, 1984. Jeff, do you want to add anything to that? I mean,
well, this is, classic, misdirection. We're not going to call it censoring. We're going to call it pre-bunking. Well, how do they know what's going to essentially go viral? What is going to seize? People are going to say, what the public is going to seize on and say, hey, yeah, that's a good point. They can't. So what they're going to do is they're going to narrowly define what is allowed to be said. And anything outside of that is going to be censored because they can't afford to let anything slip through the cracks. So you censor everything.
That's a great analogy, Jeff. Well done. Really well done. Randy, do you want to add anything to that?
Well, I was just going to say that, as I always say, verbiage matters. You would need a psychologist and an attorney to listen to every single word she says and how she phrases it, where it is in the sentence and everything else to figure out what legally she's really saying and what latitude that's going to give them. And then unfortunately for us, the common folk, right, it always comes down to what she's talking about, but who gets to determine the truth?
Yeah, true story, which obviously is the ministry of truth. And we've been saying pretty much since we started Survival Dispatch News several years ago that Western countries, especially Europe, is a great harbinger of things to come here. And they already did this under the Biden admin, and I shouldn't say if, when the bad guys regain control, they're gonna drive this shit home big time. So next one up, this is a DEI embarrassment. Washington State Patrol lieutenant is easily shoved to the ground, has her cruiser stolen after confronting some dude attempting to casually stroll across the freeway. 1 minute, 25 seconds. We don't have to watch the whole thing, but this is why, number one, that cops especially need to be hired based on merit and the same physical test for males and females, as well as the fact that, you know what, my blood pressure's up. I got to stop right there. I can just feel it. My watch is going off. I'm going to end up having a heart attack on air. Let me just play this. So here's this dude running across the highway. Up comes the cop in a second.
So is he already evading them, or she just comes up because he's in the road now?
She's on the road, just happens to be heading this direction. There she is.
I meant him. So this is their first interaction. It's not like he's trying to escape them already from the other side, correct?
No, yeah. He's just walking across the interstate
like an idiot.
So now she moves her car over, you know, which I guess she's trying to stop people from hitting him. But this gets pretty crazy here. I mean, again, this is why you need to have equal tests, equal physical tests for men and women, physical tests. And if you can't pass the test, you don't get to be a cop in the field because of stuff like this. Here it comes. Number one, why is her door open? Number two, there you go. See ya. She can't even draw her pistol. Look at this.
Yeah, he was smart enough to lock the door, sweetheart.
Look at this though. She's trying to grab her pistol here.
He probably didn't even have to lock the door. He probably, once you put it in drive, it locks.
Yeah, I'm sure that you're right.
Good point.
Can you imagine if that was Tactical Carl and he tried that shit?
I'd be lead flying everywhere.
Well, the guy would be pummeled into the ground.
I mean, this is why we can't lower standards to accommodate somebody's, you know, bullshit view of the world. You know what else is also at fault here, and I've mentioned it before, is Netflix publishing. Like, if you go on Netflix and you look at the movies, every other fucking movie is some, you know, 120-pound girl who's a special forces, you know,
Dude, that's all of Hollywood now, man. It don't matter.
And you know, she hit some 300-pound guy once on the chin and knocks him out cold. I mean, do you know why the undercard sucks so bad when you go to boxing? Because it's all the lightweights and featherweights that don't have enough power behind their punches to knock each other out. They all go the distance and they throw hundreds and hundreds of punches. It's like fly swatting at each other. That type of stuff, though, when young girls watch that and they think that they are just as badass as men are in for a rude awakening like this, because they're not.
Well, he had zero trouble. Once the door came open, he only grabbed her with one arm and just from his own body weight launched her right out of that vehicle.
Right. Jeff, you're on mute.
All they need to do with these women is say, okay, we're going to go full contact. But one fight, full contact with a guy, and they would say, okay, I'm done.
Well, because you know the criminals in the world don't care. They show up and you've got an advantage. They're going to take it.
And listen, there are always outliers. So you don't have to send me hate mail saying that, you know, some woman who's, you know, a tough badass. Sure, there are some women out there that are badasses, but the vast majority of them can't pass the same tests that males can. How many female Green Berets are there, Randy? You're on mute, Randy.
Zero. I mean, I don't know what's happened in the last few years. You know what I mean? But historically, now that they've opened the gate to some women, I don't know if there's any actually serving on an ODA or not. I would assume not, since I haven't seen any kind of news of that. I think someone's gone through just like Ranger School and got their beret, but I'm not 100% on that either, because that's a 2-year course. No matter what, that's 2 years of your life You know what I mean? That you're basically going to be a student going from one school to the next.
And incredibly physically demanding at the end of the day.
Oh, well, you know, the thing about the Q course, it's all the way. That's one of the reasons why you will see a bunch of dudes that, you know, have been strong or in a gym their entire life, but they get into the Q course and they don't have the mental stamina or the mental will, right? And, you know, I've seen it happen myself. Some guys that were absolute studs, but they were more physical. They were one of those that didn't, you know, you know what I mean? Back in the day, I remember, you know, some people thought the best jocks weren't the smartest guys, right? They got the physical attributes, but they didn't get the mental attributes. And the Q course draws that out. So it doesn't matter who you are, sooner or later, you find that your physical strength can get you no further. And when dudes aren't able to use their mental capacity to get past that, or their acuity, they're over right there and they leave the course. It's out, it's over, and see you later. You know, where Ranger School, 62 days of just pure suck from one day to the next. And it also does kind of the same thing, but just in a much shorter version.
Well, here's the deal. We're not all equal, period.
No, those girls that pass Ranger School, it's a known fact. They lowered the standards so the girls could pass. Now, did they make it like, you know, where anybody, I don't know. I can't speak to that, but I do know the guys that went through the school with them, there were several aspects that they had to do that the girls did not.
Well, here's a question for you. When's the last time you read of some male swimmer swimming across the English Channel, swimming from Cuba to Florida? When's the last time you heard of that?
I know somebody that was going to try, but yeah, I don't think they did. I haven't heard of that in a long, long time.
It's all women. They have a higher percentage of body fat even when they're in really good shape, so they're more buoyant, and they have the endurance, whereas muscle just sinks. And somebody, Doherty there, made a comment about my wife being a badass. My wife is a badass, and you know, you've met her in person many times, but my wife could beat the crap out of any soy boy out there. Like, it's not even close. She could also outshoot. So there's always outliers. There's always exceptions to the rules. But this video, great example of how that's not the case. Somebody said, you know, Hollywood is fiction. Why would you believe anything is real? Well, we don't believe any of that stuff is real, but you have a whole, probably 2 generations now of millennials and Gen Zers who see the Hollywood depiction of this 120-pound girl, again, going toe-to-toe with a 300-pound man, and they win, and they start to get programmed to think that they're on the same level physically, and they're not.
Well, Chris, you know as well as I do, and I'm sure Jeff does. We all know. I mean, the truth of the matter is, it doesn't matter how bad, and you're right, there are some badass women that can kick some dude's ass. It doesn't matter how badass that woman gets. If she runs into a real killer that's a man, she has 0 chance of making it.
Well, I'm going to tell you straight up, I've lost count of how many times on the beat cops have said to me off the record, I despise having a female partner, because when it's go time, I don't just have to take out the bad guy. I have to protect her instead of concentrating on the bad guy. So I'm not bashing women. I'm not misogynistic. I'm telling you, my wife is a badass, but my wife will be the first one to tell you that she's not going to, you know, get into a wrestling match with me, or arm wrestling, or weightlifting, or anything, punching power.
She's not going to get in the boxing ring with you, is she?
No, exactly. But you know what? She can do all kinds of things I can't do. We're not all equal.
Yeah, period. And I'm not either. I absolutely love women, you know, and my fiance is a great woman, and she can shoot and do all that stuff too. But the fact, I'm just being a realist. It's just what the truth is. It's biology.
It is. All right, let's move on. Let's go back to blood pressure stuff, you know, with these goddamn terrorists. Pro-Hamas Muslims and leftists living in America say, pardon my French, fuck America and death to America with no shame at all. If you hate America, get the fuck out. When will the world realize that they are enemies of Western civilization? We are at war. People have got to get their heads wrapped around this. 21 seconds. So in the background, America, death to America. Why would you say death to America? You're in America. That's the second guy, the question he asked her.
We need to go America, death to America. Why would you say death to America? You're in America.
This down with U.S. imperialism.
So, Randy, both of you, you've both served overseas. If you went like downtown some city in Iraq or Afghanistan and said, fuck Iraq or fuck Afghanistan, and everybody who lives here and comes from here, what kind of reception would you get, Randy? And then Jeff.
I think any country, you think about China or Russia, either one too, but certainly those either. I don't think Afghanistan or Iraq would be any different. Now, I will say they're more tribal, so they don't really have a national pride.
Yeah.
But if you showed up there and tried to hang your flag and you said something like that, it'd be like saying something about the Prophet Muhammad, and you would find out real quick what either getting your head cut off is about or getting stoned to death.
Man, the AI is working overtime on YouTube, censoring people and fixing to prove this thing. But Jeff, I'd love to hear your thoughts on.
Well, Randy's right in a lot of those places. It's tribal. You go in and say, screw Afghanistan. Most Afghanis look at you like whatever. But if you said, screw the Pashtus, well, they'd probably cut your freaking head off. They are tribal. But no country in the world except Western democracies put up with this crap. I mean, even if if you went to Venezuela and went downtown Caracas and said, Maduro's a cocksucker and you should burn in hell, you'd probably have the police, playing soccer with your kidneys about 2 minutes later.
So you want to hear about censorship? I mean, it's a good topic for us to cover because we have an experience with it. Derek said, please remember to hit the like button, and YouTube censored his comment. I just had to allow it on freaking real. All right, next one up here. This will help to continue elevating everybody's blood pressure. Leftist Minnesota judge overturns unanimous jury verdict, lets Somali fraudster who stole $7.2 million in Medicaid funds walk free. Jury convicted. Fake bills, luxury cars, all on the taxpayer dime. The judge even admits that fraud happened, but tosses the decision anyway. I'm not playing this whole video.
Big reversal in a $7.2 million fraud case in Hennepin County. The judge has thrown out the jury's guilty verdict.
This wasn't some technical hiccup. These fraudsters, Abdelfattah Yusuf and Lul Ahmed, were convicted on 6 counts of charges, months of evidence, a jury that deliberated for hours, all erased in one ruling.
Yusuf and his wife, Lul Ahmed, were charged with stealing $7.2 million of taxpayer money through Medicaid overbilling in a personal care assistant or PCA scam. The couple allegedly spent tens of thousands of the fraud money.
And here's the part that rattled people inside the system. The judge didn't say the fraud didn't happen. She said the state couldn't prove who was responsible, which raised this question on everyone's minds. If a case this obvious can't hold, what happens to the rest? Because this ruling hit while Minnesota is already buried under billion-dollar fraud scandals, overseas money trails, and growing federal probes into how taxpayer money keeps disappearing. And here's the twist most people missed. Once that verdict collapsed, the issue stopped being one defendant. It became about whether Minnesota's system can still enforce fraud at all, or whether the feds are stepping in because the state no longer can. And that's where this story really starts.
All right, I got to stop it there. Jeff, we'll go to you first on this one. I want to quickly say thank you to John, by the way. Thank you, John. Appreciate your support. Go ahead, Jeff.
Yeah, I read about this like the day after it happened. And the judge was trying to rationalize her decision by saying, well, the jurors weren't presented with evidence that maybe it could have been something else other than gross fraud. And it's like, really? You have to lay out every possibility. It could have been space aliens. Maybe it was Putin. No, I mean, these people, they applied for the money. They cashed the checks. They spent the money and provided none of the services that they were supposed to provide. Okay, how it couldn't be any more cut and dried than that. You've got a judge is like, well, they're Somalis, so we're Democrat judge, Democrat county. They depend on Somali voters. Just let them walk.
I don't think it made it into the brief, but there's a girl who stole millions from FEMA, And she spent $109,000 on a diamond ring and got caught, and she's not being prosecuted. You can't make this shit up. Randy, your thoughts here on a judge overturning a unanimous jury decision?
Well, it's no different than all these other activist judges that keep holding up all the national policy at the executive level. It's no different than these other activist judges that are letting out all these criminals 60 and 70 times. I mean, it's ridiculous. So at some point, we definitely need to get rid of all the activist judge, any judge that Obama put in, any judge that Biden put in. I know people say, oh, well, that's just going after your political enemies. No, they are activists. These aren't even real judges. These are activists that are there to disrupt. And this is the kind of thing, not only by letting criminals out over and over until they kill multiple people, but just like this kind of fraud, that kind of money, and they're just going to, don't worry about what the jury said. I'm the judge, so we're going to at what point are we going to hold these judges accountable? We need to get first, like I said, we need to remove all of those, but any of them that have made some kind of decision like this, they need to be held accountable. Like financially, she needs to be drained of every dollar she ever made because she just let these guys off on that kind. And there's got to be a way to undo what she just did so that they can be held accountable.
Yeah, you would think so. I mean, the word of the year for 2026 is going to be remigration. And the second word of the year for 2026 is going to be accountability. If we don't see those two things happen, this is a powder keg waiting to go off. Because while I'm concerned that many people don't realize that we're at war, more and more people each day are cluing in that we're at war. So here's another story in here that will help to raise your blood pressure. Man wearing a MAGA hat gets kicked off the Delta flight because people were uncomfortable with his hat. 42 seconds.
So right now I've been asked to step off the plane because of my hat. Can you believe that? So now I'm waiting for the captain to have a word with me, and I'm flying Delta.
I have to comply with the wishes of everybody. Okay.
Oh, everybody.
Everybody. I hope you write this whole thing up. Okay. What happened? Because Delta.
Oh, I'm videoing it.
Oh, I don't.
Oh no! I can video, but I'm being wet here in front of people. But
you and I are going to stop this.
Is this a Delta going to take me off the plane because of my hat? I wore this hat to Vegas. I wore this hat to Salt Lake City. Nobody said nothing. So now, if there's somebody on that plane that's got something on their head, or I don't like their shirt or their T-shirt, you want to help them remove it for me?
Well,
see what I'm saying? It just doesn't make sense to me.
So does this mean that when we fly and some shithead has a BLM shirt on and we complain about it, they're going to get kicked off? I guarantee you it ain't going to happen.
No.
Jeff, go ahead and run with that one.
Well, it won't happen because we're the wrong color. And no one should be kicked off a plane for wearing a hat. No one should be kicked off a plane for wearing a shirt. But it always goes one direction. It's always conservatives. It's always Republicans. It's always MAGA people. Someone could have a T-shirt or a hat that says F Trump. They don't get kicked off the plane.
Yeah, absolutely not. Randy?
Well, until the corporations are forced to have to tell people to shut up, or if you've got a problem with his hat, it's your personal problem. Get off the plane and go get another ride then.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just insanity. All right, next one up, Islamification. Islamic migrant Ahmed Al-Shami, who ran a New York deli, was prosecuted for an EBT snap fraud ring as his burqa-clad wife flipped off the crowd and shouted, "Fuck America." 1 minute, 2 seconds.
You happy now? For Mr. Shami? All of you guys. America, it.
Strong words from the wife of this Lovejoy Corner deli owner as she left his court arraignment today with their daughter throwing up the bird to cameras.
This defendant is accused of flagrantly abusing the public trust.
A grand jury indicted 37-year-old Ahmed Al-Shami for food stamp fraud. Investigators say he would exchange money with individuals to use their EBT cards, then go to big box retailers to purchase items for his store. Transactions totaling almost $4,000.
He was selling Pepsi for 99 cents a 2 liter. You can't buy Pepsi for 99 cents for a 2 liter if you're an independent store owner. You have to charge more.
Buffalo council member Richard Fontana lives near the deli. He says a lot of illegal activity has been going on at the store, and it has been a major problem for the Lovejoy community.
He was essentially the worst store owner I've seen in my 20 years in City Hall.
I mean, $4,000, nothing compared to the $9 billion in Minnesota.
That's just what they caught.
Right. And how many more of them are there? Right. I mean, this is rampant fraud. And yeah, I think if you come over here and you say fuck America, you should be put on a plane and shipped the fuck out of our country. End of story. I'm telling you, people, we are at war. Whether it's politically correct or not, we are at war for the soul of America. All right, next one from Mario Knopfel. This is pretty crazy. Viral clip captures everything wrong with radical race politics. You don't deserve to be here. You're white. This is the logical endpoint of a movement that lost the plot entirely. Fighting racism by telling people they can't be in a public park because of their skin color. Demanding equality by claiming someone's opinions are invalid based on their race. The man says he's emasculated every day and then tries to emasculate others by telling them they don't belong in public spaces. The best part, another black attendee steps in and calmly points out, you're yelling. If you weren't yelling, they wouldn't come at you first. That's the voice of reason. That's someone who understands that screaming about victimhood while actively victimizing others isn't progress. It's just flat out racism. The logic eats itself. If judging people by skin color is wrong, it's wrong in every direction. Most Americans of all races understand this. It's not complicated. It's only the loudest voices who seem confused. 51 seconds. This is not satire. This is not a skit. This is real.
You don't deserve to be here. You do not deserve to be here, bro. You're white men. Do you know? You're white men talking about women. Why does our skin color matter? Your skin color allows you certain things that it does not allow me. You're not gonna invalidate me as a black man. I am literally emasculated every fucking day. Do not invalidate me, bro. Stop. You cannot come to a park like this. You're invalidating me by saying that. Oh, so you're the victim, right? So you're the victim? Kicking me out of the park. Yeah, you don't deserve to be here. You do not deserve to be here, bro. You do not deserve to be here with these opinions. No, you see how they talk to me first? You see how they talk to me first? You're yelling. You're yelling.
If you wasn't yelling, if you was talking normal and calm, they wouldn't come at you first. They would come and say, what's the problem?
You don't deserve to.
Wow.
Well,
Jeff,
Randy,
go ahead.
I'm just saying, when the people that are always talking about race and pointing at race and blaming everything on race are usually the racist. And I don't care what color you are, and you can't fight racism with racism. It's just a fact.
Yeah.
Jeff.
Well, they act like lunatics and then are surprised when people say, wow, you're acting like a lunatic. Have a normal conversation. Don't have to be screaming and yelling at people. You don't have to be dropping F-bombs every 2 seconds. But they can't have a reasonable, logical discussion about anything because their opinions are so radical they won't stand up to logic or scrutiny. So when in doubt, just increase the volume, call people names. That's the sign of someone who can't defend their position.
Yeah, 100%. So this is the last one, the sit rep. I figured we better end with something that kind of brings people's blood pressure back in line. Thank you to all of our EMS and first responders. Seriously, thank you. And it's 2 minutes and 1 second. I'm going to play the whole thing.
You're taking me out of the ordinary. I want you laying me down, so dead and buried. On the edge of your night, staying drunk on your mind. The angels up in the clouds, my jealous knowing we found something so out of the ordinary. You got me kissing the ground, I'm the sanctuary. Try to be with you, Lord, return me to dust. The angels up in the clouds, my
jealous, know what we found. Something so heavenly, higher than ecstasy. Whenever you're next to me, on my mind. We're always in black and white until I saw your light. I thought you had to die to find something so out of the ordinary. How are you laying me down to a dead and buried?
Okay. All right.
Wow. That firefighter was on fire. Firefighter saving a little kid from the fire. Some of this is footage we've already seen. I'll go ahead and pause it there because we get the message across that there's a lot of brave men out there and heroes that deserve to be recognized. So we'll leave it at that, and we'll get things rolling now with our main topic. Before we do that, I got a couple quick things to cover. First and foremost, when I mentioned Element on Christmas Eve, Element is built on the same code base as Signal, but Element, much like Signal, is open source as well. I've studied the code base, so a programmer, systems network engineer for many years here. So there are no back doors in it, but Element, number one, has a lot more functionality than Signal. And number two, because it's open source and it's built in such a way that we can take it and put it on our own server, that's why we're going to Element. More features. You can put 200,000 people on an Element server. You can put 1,000 in one group on Signal. So it scales way bigger, same amount of security, but also gives all kinds of extra features. And the biggest one is we can run it on our own server. So we've got a moderator meeting tomorrow. I have more information next week on the timeline, but we'll run Element and Signal in parallel for at least a couple months as we're getting everybody onto the new platform. But we'll be able to do webinars, all kinds of stuff with the Guardians. So it'll be, it's going to be a good move. It'll be worth the work. So let's dive into tonight's main topic. So Dissent equals terrorism narrative is how I titled it. Political dissent recast as extremism to justify surveillance and arrests. So this episode, I want to say, is number 79 out of 144. When we wrote this series, the Long War series, we designed it such that as long as you have one context, one piece of context, that you can watch any of these videos by themselves, any order you want or not, doesn't matter. So everything in the Long War series is based on post 9/11 2.0. What's 9/11 2.0? This is intelligence brought directly from Khalid and his men who are fighting in Afghanistan, that the jihadis now all come under one umbrella, the Islamic Army, Taliban, TTP, ISKP, ISIS, Boko Haram, Al-Shabaab, and the list goes on and on. So their plans are to attack 10 to 15 tier 2 American cities simultaneously. So tier 2 would be population 100 to 500,000. They're also looking for those tier 2 cities that have one level 1 trauma center that they can siege. So in a nutshell, what happens, you've got 10 to 15 cities being attacked simultaneously. You have 10 to 15 sleeper cells in each of those cities with 4 to 12 jihadis per sleeper cell. Call it somewhere between 2,000 and 3,000 highly trained jihadis attacking us simultaneously across the country. They will start with soft targets like schools, and then they'll wait until the first responders show up, and then they'll blow up some VBIEDs or suicide vests to kill as many first responders as possible. If you happen to be near the X when this goes down, get as far away as fast as you possibly can. You will have jihadis dressed up as cops, firefighters, paramedics, you name it. This is nothing new. National Guard as well. There have been a ton of uniforms stolen. There's been cop cars stolen. There's been ambulances stolen. So don't let normalcy bias kick in and go, thank God I survived that. Oh, and here comes the cavalry. If you're anywhere near this stuff, you got to get as far away as fast as you possibly can. So there will be a command and control group in Afghanistan, just like there was in Paris 2015, Mumbai 2008, that's monitoring legacy media and social media and relaying that information to the jihadis in real time, saying, hey, stop right where you are. First responders are on the way. Hey, don't attack target X, move to target Y, because we'll get a bigger kill count when we go over there. So very dynamic and changing per whatever the scenarios are, how they unfold. We had many, many months of hoaxes for bomb threats and active shooters. That was the information gathering phase where they were getting a handle on SOPs for first responders, where they came from, how long it took them to get there, how did they instruct people to leave the location to exfil. And they took all of that intelligence, and Cleed told us it's going to go quiet after they feel that they've gathered enough intelligence. And then we're going to see attacks in other Western countries, like Australia a couple weeks ago. And then they're going to hit us here in America. So the attack window is officially open as far as Cleed is concerned, but it's very unlikely that we would see a big attack between now and the kids going back to school, because they want to kill as many kids as they possibly can because of the psychological impact and the hurt and the horror that will cause. So once things are back to a normal routine in January, that attack window extends all the way through to mid-March, potentially even to April, depending on the intel that Khalid has put together and received. So now that that's out of the way and you understand the context of 9/11 2.0, we can discuss tonight's topic, Dissent equals terrorism. So I actually titled the first segment, The Nightmare of 9/11 2.0 Hits Home, because a lot of people are just completely unaware of any of this stuff. But stop and think about it for a minute. We left the southern door to our country wide open for 4 years on purpose. The country is flooded with illegals that have no right to be here, many of whom hate us. You just saw a bunch of videos in our sit rep. They hate America, they hate us, they hate our values, and they are here to engage in jihad, which is holy war against us, to take our country, just like they've been doing in Europe. And they're even further down the road there, which is, I personally think that we are going to have to liberate Europe and Canada at some point in time. Otherwise, they will be completely lost. And we're the only ones who have the ability to do something like that. So with that being said, picture you got a sunny morning, typically a Tuesday, Wednesday, or Thursday, by the way. When you run the models and you submit a whole bunch of terrorist attacks, especially CCTAs, complex coordinated terrorist attacks, and you say, run all of this and give me the statistical probability of what day and time these will happen at, they consistently come back and say 09:30 Eastern on a Tuesday, Wednesday, or Thursday. Why 09:30? Kids are in school. Most people are at work. Lots of traffic on the roads. Morning flights are already in the air because there's an airplane component with this as well, with Al-Qaeda, where they're invisible suicide vests, which cannot be detected unless an airport has millimeter wave scanners. 3% of our airports have millimeter wave scanners. They will walk through security on purpose, hijack planes on the ground. They have people on the inside to help them. We've arrested, ISIS members here in South Florida not too long ago working at the airport, but they'll push the planes away. Jihadis will take off. The Al-Qaeda jihadis will take off, and they're going to blow those planes up when they're flying low over heavily populated areas so that body parts and the luggage plane parts are falling all over. You're going to have jihadis boarding planes in Europe, also walking through security with their invisible suicide vests. And when they come in to land in America, same thing, they're going to blow them up. The reason they're going to go through security both here and there is so that when the investigations are done, they go, holy shit, our entire airline industry worldwide is at risk. They're going to shut down airlines for an extended period of time until everywhere has millimeter wave scanners, SOPs, and training in place to stop it from happening again. How long is that going to take? Long time. What kind of economic impact is that going to have? Extreme. So back to the scenario here. Imagine sunny morning, completely turns to hell, as coordinated bombs and also firearm attacks rip through downtowns, 10 to 15 major cities, tier 2 cities. What's tier 2 mean? Buffalo, New York, for example, Denver, Colorado. These are all tier 2 cities. And now you've got the streets are plugged, smoke everywhere, screams. You've got a very similar picture to 9/11 1.0, maybe without the buildings collapsing, but it's way more spread out and way more vicious. So it's spread out across the cities, but it's also spread out across America. And people are running for their lives. There's news choppers overhead, which again, the jihadis are using from the command and control centers, capturing, the chaos. At this point in time, of course, everybody who has kids is thinking, oh my God, I got to get to the school and get my kids out of school. Roads are absolutely saturated. Cell phone networks are absolutely saturated. And the whole country is stricken with fear of what's next as it goes on. By early afternoon, mid-afternoon, you will see those sleeper cells converge on the level 1 trauma centers and siege them with, 3,000 to 5,000 people on average inside of them, including staff. And once they siege those buildings, they will use those as a home base to broadcast horrendous videos of them torturing, maiming, and killing, beheading Americans until we unsiege them. And that's not going to happen overnight. You've got 4 FBI HRT teams, hostage rescue teams, that are not particularly trained in large scale, sieges like this with many thousands of hostages. They will play a role, no ifs, ands, or buts, but special forces will be called in, especially special forces who's been specifically trained to take out bad guys without killing innocent victims. However, they will booby trap the hospitals as soon as they siege them. So you'll have sarin nerve gas with a remote control, put in ductwork. So if our guys go in and they're not in full CBRN outfits, if sarin, for example, touches your skin, it goes subcutaneous. You got 3 minutes to live. Poof, you're dead. There's no saving you. Same thing goes if you breathe it in. Eye membranes in particular absorb stuff like that extremely fast. So again, imagine all of this happening and what that will do to everywhere across America. And you're going to have immediately thereafter, you're immediately going to have leaders at all levels coming back with all of these quick fixes. And people, who have lost loved ones, people who've lost somebody they know, people who've been scared to death because of this are going to welcome any additional security to prevent this from happening again. Now, keep in mind, 9/11 2.0 is not one and done. This is a new era where you've got Mayorkas's DHS let 200,000 SIAs go, special interest aliens. The only way you become an SIA is you are a known terrorist or affiliate of a terrorist group. But even Joe Kent, a couple weeks ago on the Hill in Congress, said that Joe Biden's DHS had 2,000 Taliban in their custody, and they let them go into our country. They had another 16,000 terrorists, Al-Qaeda, ISIS, and other groups that they let go. So even if you want to go all the way to the bottom, there's 18,000 specially trained terrorist spec ops guys on the loose in our country, dying to get retribution against us for how we made them feel in their own countries. They're going after vets. It's absolutely horrific. So the main threat of this, though, is that when people are that scared, they make bad decisions, and all of a sudden the Patriot Act 2.0 sounds like it's a great thing, when in reality, it's going to be a massive, massive removal of our constitutional rights. So with all of that being said, apologies for being a little bit long-winded, but I know we've got a lot of new people, and I want to make sure that all y'all understand the context of this. Jeff, I'm curious, before this stuff goes, global across social media and other mechanisms, phone calls, texts, whatever, what do you think the first thing will be that actually clues somebody in a position of authority to go, holy shit, we're under attack. Like 9/11 1.0, when the second tower got hit, that's when people went, holy shit, we're under attack. But up until that, some people thought it was like a Cessna that crashed into the towers. What do you think that first thing is that tweaks authorities?
Well, I think it's going to be the fact that it's occurring at the same time in two different cities. They're going to look at one as, okay, it's a mass shooter. It's, it's a in Uvalde. It's, something like that. But it's a one-off incident. You look at the one in California where the husband and wife team, shot up and killed 15 people at some, meeting. But when you see that happening, and then the same thing happens at another location, and they are same MO, that's where the light bulb's going to have to come on at that point.
Jeff, in your experience, will there be any immediate bragging by the terrorists, or will they save that for, after they've managed to seize stuff?
They'll probably, you might get, ironically, probably the ones that'll be bragging are the ones not involved. Okay. They just want to claim credit for it and want to look like, look at me, I'm a badass. But I think the ones actually involved, I'm sure they'll have a press release or whatever already prepped. They'll have a video where they're saying, yes, this is what we did. And it'll probably include enough details to where it becomes obvious that, whoever made this video had foreknowledge of it. But I think, it may be 24 hours, it may be 48 hours, because not knowing who did it also increases the anxiety.
Yeah.
Because, you don't know who the bad guy is.
Well, before I go to Randy, one more question. What do you reckon the prospects are that the Trump admin decides to start bombing other countries in very short order?
Oh, yeah, that'll happen. They'll need to figure out who to bomb, but there may be some ignorance in government, but they're not that ignorant. As soon as it happens, the first question is going to be, who in the hell did this? And you're going to have somebody go, I know, it's these guys, and we heard about this, and nobody paid attention to it. So one way to cover up for their stupidity is to go blow the hell out of somebody.
Yeah, I guess so. So, Randy, coming to you here, give me a worst case scenario for panic. In other words, actions that panic people will take. What is the absolute worst thing that you can imagine that is a direct result of that panic?
Well, let's just take the Vegas shooting, for example, right now. We don't know if it'll be that size of a crowd, one of the events that they pick. It very well could be, right? Because that's kind of what they're looking for to open things up. And the other part is most people are there and they haven't really thought about, hey, if somebody starts shooting us, where am I going to run? Where's safe? Where am I going? And then it's the same old adage, right? Everybody just loses their mind and takes off running in, whatever one direction. And it seems like in a lot of those, and it could be even, it's happened in fires, right? Where people get run over and killed, or even in concerts, because everybody started running one direction. And if you fall, nobody, they just keep running right over you. Nobody even knows you're there. So I think one of the things would be during these initial events is people may end up running over themselves, trying to get out of the way, and unfortunately become casualties after that. Because I think, I think as y'all touched on a minute ago, I'm certain they've already got this whole package worked out, like their media package. They're not, these guys are sophisticated in that way, as we've mentioned, even early on, as the examples I've used in Iraq, where, we had a hit go down, but then, the criminals then quickly changed the scene, took pictures, and then posted them on. They have this stuff down pat, getting that story out first. So I would imagine there are going to be some people that claim it, whether they're the right ones or not. Jeff's probably correct. Some of them won't be. They're looking for street cred. But if I remember right, he said this thing's going to develop over like 3 days. Like the third day is when they're going to get to the hospital. So you got to realize, let's just say they had one event like Vegas, there was a big concert, or maybe they start at a school. Because they can just walk up to any school, as we've mentioned, and they know this, right? Because this is what our lone shooters here seem to do, with all the same metrics. You just walk up to any school, and they are literally undefended and almost nowhere to go for a lot of those kids. It would be a turkey shoot. You could open up And think of the panic that would invoke, like throughout the entire nation, from that one community on. You know, people would be like rushing to go get their kids out of school in every city, probably. So I think the panic that would come over, you know, it's the same adage of you need to stop and think and ask yourself a couple of questions, because you might not be mad, but when that adrenaline hits, because now something like this happened, you're in that same mode. All the blood just left your brain and went into the big muscles of your body so you could fight or flight. So you really need to step back and ask yourself a couple of questions before you just hit complete panic mode. As the old joke goes, and I can't remember the movie, right? Never go full retard.
Pretty well. Speaking of full retard, this asswipe here at Dizzy 911, God has no sympathy for any of y'all. Judgment is coming. Well, you know what? I wrote an article this weekend on the Abraham covenant and Ishmael and Isaac, and you camel jockeys are direct descendants of Ishmael. You can trace him on to Muhammad and the rest of you camel jockeys. And he was an illegitimate son of Abraham's, born by Hagar, the Egyptian maid, while Isaac was born by his wife, Abraham's wife, Sarah. And the covenant covered Isaac, not Ishmael, because he specifically states in biblical terms and not redneck terms that your guy, Ishmael, is a complete piece of shit who leads to the Antichrist taking over Earth. So if anybody's going to have any judgment, it's you assholes, not us. We're on the right side of history. You guys aren't. You're going to pay a heavy price for it. So now
this was one of the other comments they made earlier. It said, why wouldn't people hate white America? Look at what you've done to the world. Same exact person.
So I left that person alone until we had a chance to address that. They've now been banned from the channel. Anybody who's interested in reading that article that I published yesterday on the Abraham covenant, I just pasted the link for everybody to go to it. So Jeff, I want to come back to you here on this one. And based on past attacks, why do you figure governments almost instantly jump to tough new laws and rules that infringe on people's liberties? Like this is the attack in Australia. What's the first thing they said? Oh, we need to crack down on right-wing conservatives and we need to take more guns away.
Well, one thing that for a lot of them, it's just a knee-jerk reaction. But it is them saying, look, we did something. Now, what we did is totally useless and had in no way would have affected somebody trying to carry out another one of these attacks. But as Rahm Emanuel said, never let a good crisis go to waste. So a lot of these people, they've got these things they want to do. They're just waiting for the proper crisis so they can try and convince everybody it's absolutely necessary and then ram it through. It's like, the Patriot Act 2.0. We all know that somewhere there is a plan sitting, already done. It's already typed up. It's already, it's just ready to be voted on. And, they're just waiting for the opportune time.
Let me ask you a question, Jeff, before we go to the next segment, and I'll come to Randy first on the next segment. What do you think the chances are of these Islamic army guys, the support teams in particular, not the jihadis who are actually doing the killing? What do you think the chances are that they will flood social media with a bunch of lies regarding the size and scope of the attack? Isn't that kind of standard MO for those guys?
Yeah, that's, and you see that everywhere. It's a standard thing. You want to amplify what you consider the good information and minimize the bad stuff. We saw it when we invaded Iraq the second time. You had Baghdad Bob out there saying, yeah, we're defeating the Americans. They'll never drive into Baghdad. And in the background, there's a freaking M1 tank rolling by. But I mean, and he was out there with full throat. Yeah, we're going to kick the Americans' ass. And we saw it in World War II. Hitler was ordering up divisions to come rescue Berlin. And these divisions had ceased to exist, years before, because they were just totally wiped out. There'd be like 10 guys left. But the disinformation campaign is a big part. It's just propaganda. It's a big part of military campaigns. It's, preparing the battlefield. You're doing it both physically by, bombing the crap out of defensive positions, but you're also doing it psychologically by, basically demoralizing or trying to demoralize the civilian population that you want to subjugate.
Yeah, good answer. Thank you. So we're going to move into segment number 2. I titled it Dissent Turns into the New Enemy. So imagine now the smoke's clearing from these strikes. Talking heads on TV start spinning a tale where, regular folks yelling about government screw ups and letting this happen aren't just mad, but those are actually the bad guys. The people pointing out that the feds in particular dropped the ball on this. And therefore we need to crack down on the people who are speaking out against the government. And that shift will come, in a very sneaky type of manner where officials will start to leak stories about homegrown threats. And those homegrown threats will, lump in peaceful protesters, real peaceful protesters, not the other ones, and confusing, especially middle-aged white guys with the camel jockeys, the actual bombers. And it'll make it look like, you can't question the government. If you question the government, you must be one of the bad guys. You must be one of the enemies. And I mean, that's my biggest concern, because we saw it start under the Biden installation. We continue to see it in the European Union. At some point, they will steal another election, and they will do more than just double down on what they started under Biden. They will go full retard, as Randy said. And, before you know it, you have to be careful speaking up about anything, just like we learned on CommieTube during Charlie 19, when we pointed out that it was a flu strain, that it was from Wuhan, China, and that ivermectin was, and who knows, I might even get a strike for just saying that on this broadcast. They're still hammering people like us. But instantly, anybody who had legit information that questioned the official narrative got smoked. I mean, we got deplatformed, we had channels deleted, we got strikes out, the freaking yin yang, and that's exactly where things will go, period. The bureaucrats in particular, so the people who weren't voted into office and spent 30 years as, bureaucrats. Anyway, so my point is before you know it, there's going to be people on our side of the equation that are afraid to speak their voice because of the repercussions that'll come from that. Let me take us over to this stage here just for a second, and then I'm coming to you first, Randy. So there was a Newsweek story. So this is October 4th, 2023, when Biden was still installed. And so there's a link you can click through to, which isn't really necessary, but this story backs up everything that the Steve guy warned us about. So should send chills down your spine. Before the 2024 presidential election, the FBI has quietly created a new category of domestic terrorists to hunt down. They were specifically named in that FBI, document of Donald Trump supporters. If you support Donald Trump, your name goes on a list. And then they wanted to come and fabricate charges, reasons to lock us up, shut us down, take our voices away. So Miranda here says, it shouldn't shock me, but it does. After months of BLM Antifa riots egged on by Democrats, an FBI officer says, obviously, if the Democratic Party supporters resort to violence, the domestic terrorism category would apply to them as well. But there's a low likelihood of that. Shocking. Absolutely shocking. Randy, give me your thoughts on that, where they had the nerve to say that they wouldn't crack down on the BLM Antifa guys, but they would crack down on us for stating truthful things.
Well, it's their old playbook, right? Tell your enemy, accuse your enemy of doing what you're doing. That's really all this is, and when you look at it, that's all that is, all that it is. They're allowing them to get away with that, but they want to hold others responsible. Again, it's like the two-tiered law system, right? or justice. If you're a white conservative or conservative period, anything you do or anything they deem you've done wrong, they're going to charge you for. And if people don't believe that they already have that list of Donald Trump supporters with all of us on there, they had it ready on January 6, 2021, folks. They had the list ready, because had they been able to kick that off like it was a real insurrection and then hold, what they really wanted to do was not just pin Donald Trump to it and say, he caused this on Twitter. He called them to action to do this, because if they were able to pin that on him and say that he created, he had got all his supporters up in a row, they were coming for us next. They were going to label everybody that's voted for him or supported him a domestic terrorist. And if we'd have been all under that umbrella, then the gloves come off, as we know. There's a lot of things they can do, a lot of freedoms, and they would have locked us all up just like they locked up the January 6th people.
Well, just off the top of your head, Randy, in addition to being a Donald Trump supporter or voter, what other things do you think got people identified as domestic terrorists, or will get people identified as domestic terrorists who don't toe the Democrat line?
Well, if you buck, if you don't like, if you speak the truth, that's for sure. Just like you said about COVID, where it came from, and many things that we see today, right? But I've said it many times, folks, and it really is this simple. I hate to keep saying that either. It's overused. But the truth is, no one cares if you question the truth. No one cares, because no matter how many different ways you boil it down, it turns out to be the same truth every time, and it's never going to change. If you can't question any narrative because they're telling you it's true, but you can't question it, or they hammer people that do, it's because they're lying. It's not the truth. It really is that simple, because they have to do that. We don't need a ministry of truth or any of that other crap or fact checkers, because they seem to be the opposite of what they tell us they're for. And we know this. So, it comes down to just like the messages that are going out. I mentioned the other day, they had on the show Homeland or whatever it was, that series, where it showed all the little nodes on the internet around the country that were basically, state sponsored stuff where they could pop out the memes, and then real people start sharing the memes. Next thing you know, that message is out. And again, there's nobody putting out disinformation or propaganda except the government and the left and all of its arms. That's who's doing it.
So as you're saying all of that, I'm thinking back to Ursula, what's her name, saying pre-bunking, not debunking, pre-bunking.
Comes down to verbiage.
Jeff, can you speculate on why some people fall for this shit? Like, they believe these official narratives when the rest of us look at it and go, that's a bald-faced lie. Why do some people fall for it?
I think it falls into two categories. There are some people, and a lot of baby boomers are this way. They grew up trusting the government was telling the truth, and for a lot of their life, maybe it was, and therefore it's kind of their normalcy bias. To them, it's normal to believe what the government says, so you believe what the government says. The other big group is it confirms what they want to be true. It confirms their own biases. They feel that the problem in America is middle-aged white guys. So anybody who reiterates that is automatically to them telling the truth, because it just reinforces what they say. It's like an ugly girl who thinks she's pretty. If someone says, you're really about maybe a 3 out of 10 at best, she's going to disregard. The one that says, baby, you're hotter than hell, you're the one telling the truth.
Right. So I'd like you to comment on this one, Jeff. So exclusive Rep. Andy Ogles calls for FBI to expose officials who persecuted parents as domestic terrorists. So this weasel, well, they're both weasels, but the smaller weasel on the right there, thank God he's not on the Supreme Court.
Merrick Garland, yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, he went hard against parents who spoke up at county school meetings. Rep. Andy Ogles is calling for FBI Director Kash Patel to conduct a full investigation in the Biden administration's witch hunt of concerned parents. Whistleblower reports as far back as 2021 revealed Biden's FBI deployed counterterrorism tools to target concerned parents participating in local school board meetings, even labeling parents voicing concerns about education in their local school district as potential domestic terrorist. I mean, this is a prime example of what I'm getting at, Jeff. Who in their right mind believes that shit? And you answered it.
It's not, they don't expect people necessarily to believe it. They just want to use it. And the thing is, when you like parents who spoke out at school board meetings, they were speaking out against, tranny issues and pronouns and, guys and girls sports, but also school shutdowns for COVID and, all that nonsense and the mandatory vaccines and all that. All of those people, they want to shut the hell up because they're challenging them and their policies. So if you treat a handful like domestic terrorists and you prosecute them, these are people who cannot afford to go to jail or to lose their jobs because they've got families and things like that. Okay, I'm an old retired guy. They can come to me and say, yeah, you're going to lose your job. Okay, I'm retired, so kiss my ass. They can threaten me all they want. We can arrest you and haul you in. Go ahead. I'm not going to lose work. I'll spend a day in jail. I've been in jail before. I survived, obviously. So, go ahead. And then I'll sue your freaking ass off. Oh, by the way, I have the resources to hire a good enough lawyer to make your life utterly miserable. But they go after the people who can't fight back for various reasons.
Yeah, and I mean,
bullies beat up on kids who can't threaten them. Politicians bully people who can't fight back.
Yeah, exactly. Always. So
they tried to bully Elon Musk, and he goes, "I'll spend $1 billion on lawyers, so go ahead." So they back off.
Yeah, exactly. So moving into segment number 3, I titled this one, Big Brother's Eyes Get Sharper, Surveillance Goes into Overdrive. So right on cue after the attacks, the initial attacks of 9/11 2.0, camera drones, data grabs, all of this stuff will explode like across the whole spectrum. And you'll hear excuses that, well, we have to do this to snag the terrorists before they strike again. But really, it's going to be about tracking every single text, every single, X post for the entire country. You're going to see neighbors start snitching on each other, like the Karens who, would go and rat on you because you didn't have a mask. I'm not wearing a mask. What are the numbers again, Jeff? Let me get you back up here for a second. What is the size of the pores in an N95 mask versus the size of a virus like Charlie 19?
Yeah, the smallest pore size is 3 microns. That's what they say they can filter out, 3 microns and larger. But a virus, a COVID virus is 80 to 120 nanometers, which means about 100 viruses could hold hands and still just waltz right through the smallest pore.
What do you reckon about when people were wearing masks during that bullshit and they were up north and you could see their breath when they were breathing?
Well, it's like people will smoke and they exhale and the smoke comes out. It's like, well, if the particles in smoke are bigger than viruses, so if that can get through, a virus can get through.
Well, how about the retards who made school bands cut the lips out of the mask so they could play a flute?
Yeah.
A big WTF there, right?
Yeah. Well, they had people actually trying to swim with masks on.
Just insanity. Well, let me get us back.
Oh, you remember you had to, in California, they had to wear it at the beach. I mean,
yeah.
Yeah, just straight up insanity. So let me just reel this back in again. So you got neighbors snitching on each other. They hear things from somebody else's, backyard, or the windows are open. They hear something and it sounds anti-establishment. And, next thing you know, you're getting reported for that by these Karens. And, the bureaucrats, they have an SOP, right? They know how to do this stuff. Like, we are ramping up protection. We're not infringing on your civil liberties, your constitutional rights. We're going to ramp this up so that we can make you safer. and will protect you. It's like everything else in life. First thing you do is decide what you want. Next thing you do is decide what you're willing to give up to get it. If you want to give up your civil liberties to save Darwin candidates, then, you know, that's your world. The rest of us don't feel that way at all. But at the end of the day, they will cast a very large, wide net, and they're going to scoop up people from all parts of America, whether they could be, you know, podcasters like us, they could be truckers, they could be church groups, you know, who are just looking for answers and, you know, turning them into criminals on paper. So I'm going to come first to you, Randy, and I'm curious what your thoughts are on what everyday tech tools do you think will immediately be weaponized to go against people? And one quick statement: the article I wrote on Abraham, Isaac, and Ishmael was based on my brother-in-law, 30-year sheriff, 12-year Navy intel, and he's our pastor. And he gave me a really good education, the beginnings of a good education on Christmas Eve. He was the origin of the Abraham, Isaac, Ishmael. That wasn't directly my thing. I just wrote about it. Sorry, Randy, go ahead. What technology do you think they're going to instantly turn upside down to use against us?
Well, every piece of technology we have, everything is smart, right? You have smartphones, you have smart TVs, you know, and I've said it all along, and there still is not one in my house. My parents have them, most everybody. I mean, I think I go to most places and it seems like everybody has them, you know, whether it be the little Fire Stick or Alexa or whatever it is. You know, right now it's voluntarily, and they make it seem like it's good and convenient for you. It is. You can turn on music, I guess, turn your channel. There's several things you can do with those Alexa things and the Google things, right? But if you don't think that they're not listening to every single thing in your house and notating that stuff, you're sadly mistaken. And at some point, if they do this 2.0 thing, guess what? It's not going to be voluntary anymore. They're going to put one of those in everybody's house, because they're going to be, just like I said, you're not going to be able to say anything anywhere, even in your own home, if they can't hear you. And oh, by the way, folks, they're taking it farther than that. They'll be reading your thoughts. The next thing, trust me, we know that there's some form of weather manipulation going on, although they deny it, but they've been studying weather for the last 70 or 80 years. Folks, if they didn't find out anything, they wouldn't keep funding the research. It's a fact. And it's the same thing with, our brains or a mental thing. They've been studying that for 70, 80 years. If you don't think they haven't learned something, I don't know what it is. I don't have a clue, but I'm telling you, they wouldn't keep spending the money on that kind of research if they weren't learning stuff and making tools. So that's what's going to happen, because then you won't be at work, at home, or anywhere else, including your car, because you have radios in there too, and you have a GPS, and now they're all computerized. And guess what? With all you people that want electric cars, they will have complete control over those cars. And you won't go anywhere that you can't say or do anything that they can't hear or penalize you for. And God forbid, like I said, they ever start reading minds, you won't be able to think it.
So that was fantastic, Randy. Thank you. So Jeff, it kind of a, foregone conclusion where you're going to go with this, but why do you reckon governments always go from, we're only targeting the bad guys, to, okay, we're capturing this on everybody, we're going to surveil everybody? Why does it go from 0 to 100 just like that?
When you build it, you use it. And if you're targeting it at, say, terrorists to start with, and you run out of terrorists, they don't ever take anything apart. They don't ever tear it down. They just aim it somewhere else. And I heard a guy today, he's a British comedian of all things, but he had a very good point. He was talking about AI, for example. He says, people worry about losing their job. That's not what you need to be worried about. You need to be worried about AI spying on you. And he goes, the East Germany, the Stasi, their secret police, was about 20% of their government funding was on the Stasi, basically spying on everybody in the country. And 25% of the people in the country were actually on the books Stasi collaborators, snitches. Well, AI, he says, AI allows you to do that now with all the cameras and drones and everything else in AI. you can do that for a fraction of the cost. You can do that for 1% of the cost. You don't need people. You got cameras. You don't need to collate that data. AI will do that for you. And when they have something like that, it's a hammer. When you run out of nails, you find something else to hit with it. And that's exactly what they're going to do. And it's going to start with the terrorists, and then it'll go to the criminals, and then it'll go to anybody who complains about it.
Yeah, true story. So let's just give a shout out to our sponsors quickly here. And I just put a link for this. So carnivalt.com, eat meat is the code. These guys here at carnivalt.com, we don't get any affiliate income from them, but when you support them, it allows them to support us. We spend $4,700 a month on software, $4,000 a month on ClearStar. Our software is fixing to go to 5,300 plus with a new Element server, plus StreamYard. I don't know if I told you guys this. They went and looked at the volume of stuff coming out of our account and said, oh, you guys need an enterprise level account. So they're jacking up. They're more than tripling our price for the StreamYard software used for broadcasting. But you can ask Randy. You can see right behind him. He's got a shirt there. Carnivalt.com, 100% American, no mRNA, no antibiotics. Great guys. They great sponsorship prizes that I just announced earlier. Also want to give a quick shout out to our friends at wasatchwagyu.com. I'll put the link in a second. Greg, really nice guy. He upped the discount on this stuff to 20 points. You get 20% off. And, you know, if you like jerky sticks, they've got them. Personally, I like these flat strips. This one here is a beast, by the way. This ghost pepper one, I think it is. Oh my God, it'll set you on fire. But this is the most pliable, bestest jerky I have ever had in my life. wasatchwagyu.com, discount code SD20. All right, so with that being said, let's get into segment number 4, which I titled Locked Up for Speaking Out, Arrests Hit Hard and Fast. So you've got warrants dropping left, right, and center. You've got people monitoring everything that you're doing online forums, social media. Next thing you know, they start hauling in, you know, a father who posted something about border security, or, you know, the camel jockey invaders, or, you know, people questioning, you know, the thing that they stick in your arm. I'm worried if I say that, plus I said some other words earlier, the AI will smoke us for it. But those types of people like us, probably the majority of y'all who are watching, including all of us here in Survival Dispatch, you know, being, you know, labeled as extremists, which in turn justifies the investigation, putting you in cuffs, taking you to jail, arraigning you, all that crap. And you end up with this joke of a judiciary we have, the federal judiciary in particular, but all branches of the courts right now are messed up. And, you know, they just basically rubber stamp, because we've just gone through this incredibly brutal 9/11 2.0. And so now they don't want to be the one who lets something else get away. So they just basically say, yeah, we'll take everybody that the snare catches and we'll charge them and we'll make an example of it. And the net result of that is you have families torn apart. Some of you may remember, you know, that we had Sarah on, I don't know if it was last year or the year before, and her husband was a sheriff's deputy. He was at Jan 6. He helped a couple people, and they actually charged him with assault for giving a woman CPR. She died. He saved a cop. The cop, you know, was willing to testify on his behalf that he saved him, but the judge wouldn't allow it. Colton was his name, and they put him in 22 different prisons so that Sarah Maccabee was her name, so she couldn't get to visit him. Look up Colton Maccabee, Macabee. It's a horrific story, but it's exactly what, you know, he who forgets history is doomed to repeat its mistakes. But they've shown us the playbook. They showed us the playbook over January 6th. They showed us the playbook over Charlie 19, and the playbook only gets worse. Those were kind of like trial runs. So imagine what it does for people's willingness to speak up or say anything when their best buddy has just been locked up because he said he doesn't like pronouns being taught to his kids, or whatever the case may be. And essentially your rights get flushed down the toilet and nobody stands up to it because, oh, well, you know, we just suffered this massive attack and we have to do these things to protect you. And again, you'll have ongoing attacks. But the problem I have with it is if it walks like a duck and it quacks like a duck, it's a duck. Guys, these terrorists don't look like Jeff, Randy, or me. You know exactly what they look like. They look like camel jockeys. Maybe you should have a closer look at them. Maybe you should hone in on Dearborn, Minneapolis, and these other regions, Irving, that have been infested with these terrorists. Maybe that's a good spot that you should start looking at. Maybe that's the profile, you know, that you should be looking at, sort of thing. So, Randy, I'm curious what your thoughts are as far as this stuff driving wedges between families and friendships, because people will rat on somebody in a New York minute if they think it gets them ahead, in my opinion.
Well, you know, I think it's in the Bible, right? That's going to happen. That will happen. And if it's in the Bible, you can bet it's going to happen. And we really only, I have no doubt there's probably many examples, but we really only have to go back to World War II and Nazi Germany. Remember that? It wasn't very long when they started moving that machine in the wrong direction. And then they had youth groups and the brown shirts. They had all these different types of groups, but even all the youth, they were like, you know, tell on your parents if they're, not agreeing, if they're at home saying something different than what they're saying in public and what we're saying, tell them. And that actually happened. So you will definitely see that, again, because it's no different than you see how many kids, certainly boys of, school age into college, that all of a sudden wanted to be transgender, right? Because it was no longer cool to be white and everybody looked down upon you, and that wasn't a good thing. And so being a transgender was. So that's part of the allure for those that did do that, was they're going to pick something that public and society is cheering on instead of something it's not. It's the same thing. It's human nature. People will do that, and we're going to watch it happen because the state, and we had somewhere, what didn't, maybe even in California, I just was vaguely remembering something during the 2020 year of that. Wasn't there some sort of states that had hotlines that you could tell on your neighbors or even your parents?
Yeah.
So they will do that because guess what? People like telling on other people. It's just a fact.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. So, Jeff, let me bring something up here quickly for you. So this is an interesting article from out of Australia, and it's titled "Far Right or Just Right About Everything." And the political world is full of baseless slurs uttered by historically and politically illiterate shock jocks. The current favorite is far right. Pretty much any crime against woke will see you saddled with this slur, from querying Labor's big Australia dream to partaking in capitalism to defend free speech. You're far right. You're dangerous. Dangerous to left-wing politics, maybe. When it comes to the definition of far right, the pillars of Western civilization serve as scaffolding, while common sense and merit pad out the walls. There are so many Australians cozying up to far-right ideas and political parties that there's a genuine concern this radical point of view will become the majority, given how embarrassing it would be to the Unit Party and its green and teal offshoots to have the Australian people leaning back into old school values like prosperity and democracy. Something has to be done. So, Jeff, I want to get your thoughts on that. I mean, people are waking up ever so slowly.
Yeah, and the thing is, what is being called far right now was the center 40 years ago. And the people that are considered center left, Democrats were extreme left wingers 40 years ago. There are no conservative Democrats in this country anymore. And you see it in Germany, where the largest single political party is the AfD, which is, the Freedom for Deutschland party, which is the quote unquote right wing party. It's just conservative. The largest party in France, it's not a majority, but the largest single political party in France is the National Front, which is Marine Le Pen's right wing party. The largest party in Britain right now is Nigel Farage's Reform Party, right-wing party. And then in Italy, Meloni's party is ruling the country. It's the largest single party in the country. They all have multiple parties, but they're conservative. Orban in Hungary is conservative. Poland, even the left-wing polls like Tusk are not that left compared to the rest of Europe, but Poland is a conservative country. And people are getting to the point, it's like, I don't care what you call me. I just believe what I believe. And that's what it needs to get to. Just say, okay, call me right. I don't care. Wear it proudly. Okay, you think I'm right-wing? I wear that as a badge of honor. Yeah,
there you go. Check this out. So a good post. So the left went from working overtime to get anybody fired for a meme they tweeted 10 years ago to all of a sudden being very concerned about free speech when people get held accountable for publicly supporting domestic terrorism. So as you can see on the date, this is since Donald Trump got into office for the second time. So the people who were all in favor of being Karens and, getting people in trouble with the law, they weren't too concerned about, freedom of speech when it was working against their perceived enemies. But now that it might be working against them, wait a minute, you can't have this. You can't attack us because we're in the right as far as they're concerned. They always feel that they are. But anyway, with that being said, let's go into the final segment, segment 5. Gear up to fight back, spot the traps, and hold the line. So spotting the playbook means watching for buzzwords like threat actor. They tossed that around at Tea Party, members years ago, or even union hands for that matter. Giving you the heads up to rally neighbors before the vans roll in. So in other words, if you see somebody or hear somebody, supporting this narrative that goes against the official narrative, you need to report them because we're going to be coming to your neighborhood, going door to door to investigate these people. And, the best thing we can do is build a quiet network. And that sounds pretty ironic for me broadcasting that out to 9 different platforms simultaneously, but I will give our Guardians community a shameless plug. So we've got 6 private signal channels, all of which are going to be moving to Element, which is same code base, just as secure, more functionality, can handle more people. Those people in those groups, well, one chat alone, the Guardians, 12,000 messages a week. Those people are not, you can't see it if you're not in the group. So they can't be, essentially censored and, punished because they didn't think what the official narrative tells them to think. We're not the only ones doing this. I just think we're doing a better job from a security perspective because I come from big tech and a programmer, systems, network engineer, etc., as well as the fact that we're putting Element on its own server. So we're going to completely sever the big brother and a big tech, umbilical cord there. But in the end, it's going to mean that you're going to have to stand up at some point. So we can talk quietly on things like our Guardian channels, but at some point you're going to have to stand up. And whether that means speaking at a town hall or supporting somebody at a town hall, calling people out online for what's really going on, reminding everybody that you can't just give up your civil liberties over, baseless arguments. I mean, you don't need to destroy our civil liberties to catch the bad guys. Walks like a duck, quacks like a duck. That's who needs to be remigrated back to the shithole that they came from. It's really that simple. So, Randy, I'm going to come to you first. I'm curious to get your opinion on what do you think some of the early warning signs will be post 9/11 2.0 that the surveillance state is fixing to kick it into overdrive? Like the initial things that kind of will tweak you and go, oh boy, here it comes.
Well, I think, I think the first indication will be once these things kick off, if we start hearing things like martial law. If they start invoking martial law, that will be the first step because that's going to be locking you down legally, so to speak. And then I think that, you'll start to see, I don't know, some people say, people just start disappearing. That very well could happen as well. But I think that you will start to see, one, they will say, again, this was some sort of intelligence failure, right? And we should have seen this coming. We didn't. So this is why we need these things. And that's what we're going to hear first. It's no different than right after September 11th. We need to sign the Patriot Act, and boom, that happened with a quickness. And so, but then, some of the things that people start seeing personally is, you'll start seeing friends and neighbors and family members probably held accountable for things they said in their house or somewhere in public where their phones or TVs were around, any electronic that can listen. And then you'll know that it's coming down.
Yeah, fair enough. Jeff, final question goes to you for the fifth segment. What's it going to take to get people fired up so they stand up?
Yeah, I don't know. It's going to vary by person. Other people will get fired up immediately. Others, it's boiling the frog. They'll take every little thing at a time and not worry about it. They won't see where it's going. But I think when you see, you go around there telling people, you can't do what you've always done because we've just decided you can't do it. People may stand up at that point. If they close down churches again, they close down schools again. Closing down a school is not always a bad thing because schools suck. So if you teach them at home, they're probably better off anyway. But you start closing down churches, people are going to say, enough of this. And they need to just have massive, massive civil disobedience. We're going to close down the churches, and then 10,000 people show up at a church. What are they going to do? Arrest them all? No.
How just speculation, what percentage of Americans do you think went along with the Charlie 19 bullshit, but won't go along with the next one because they learned a lesson?
I think quite a few. I mean, you've got a bunch of those people who actually trusted what the government said, but everything the government said was later proven to be bullshit. And what people are finding out is that the government, it's one thing if you honestly believe something, you tell people go do X and it turns out you're wrong. But if you're going in and X is wrong from the start and you tell them to do it anyway because it's easier to control them, well, all that information got out. It's like the masks. There are still some idiots who wear masks to this day. But, if I go out and someone says, you got to wear a mask, I go, yeah, and you got to kiss my butt because now you're going to do it. But there's a lot of people who are going to say, yeah, I've died on this hill. I've already heard this story. Someone already played this tune. Yeah. I'm not buying it.
Yeah, I think so too. Definitely. I would just add that the real threat here is not just 9/11 2.0. It's not just the follow-on terrorist attacks, which we're going to see them for generations, thanks to hundreds of thousands of jihadis being allowed into our country. But it's going to be how the crisis becomes weaponized against dissent and in order to take away your constitutional rights and freedoms. How many people, it's a rhetorical question, but if you agree with me, put a 1 in the live chat. How many people thought to themselves shortly after 9/11 1.0 that the terrorists won in more ways than just kinetically, because now we have to go an hour and a half, 2 hours ahead of the flight to get through security. You have to take our shoes off, blah, 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 blah. They were laughing their asses off at us. But if you clued into that pretty quickly, throw a 1 in the live chat, because that's the first thing that occurred to me after the initial shock died down when they started putting all these things in place. Think to myself, holy crap, these jihadis got to be laughing their freaking ass off because they've completely disrupted our way of life. And that's precisely what we've been talking about tonight. They'll just make it this time around. It's going to be even worse. So what can you do? Get your preps and everything dealt with. Like, make sure you have an offline network of people, friends, family, neighbors, because anybody who goes it alone when the shit really hits the fan is probably not going to make it. Harden up your security, target harden your home. So when the bad guys look at your home and they see that you have measures to protect, whereas the next guy doesn't, where do you think the bad guy's going? He's going to the easy target, the vast majority of the time. Don't censor yourself. The only way that we can squash this PC woke progressive bullshit is to speak up against it. just be aware that depending on the venue that you do that in, you may become targeted from it. But Jeff has essentially alluded to this. You got to speak up at some point in time. Otherwise, you're going to lose it all. And I would also suggest that you get professional training. Human beings never rise to the occasion. They follow their level of training. I won't go on a deep rant on that one, but it's critical that you get training, critical that you have a family plan. If this goes down at 9:30 in the morning and you're at work and your spouse is at work and your kids are in school, what's your plan? Do you have a plan? Do you have a rendezvous point? If the answer is no to all of that stuff, we have some stuff on survivaldispatch.news as well as survivaldispatch.com as far as free guides are concerned to help you put together home defense plan, all of that good stuff. You either failed to plan or plan to fail. This is the way it basically goes. So with that being said, Randy, favorite time of the night, 3, 2, 1. All right, so it is time for the Carnival heroes, plural, of the night. This is just 110% badass American hero right here. Sorry, this one's just one hero. I was thinking of the one for tomorrow. Now I let the cat out of the bag. Forget Marvel, forget the movies. This is what a real hero looks like. Firefighter Bryce Carden didn't hesitate. A semi-truck was dangling 100 feet over the Ohio River, held up by nothing but bent steel and gravity. He looked at the terrified driver and asked one question: "Are you a praying woman?" They prayed, he clipped her in, and he brought her home. We use the word hero too loosely these days, but Bryce Carden, he that ain't a real life hero, man. That is just an amazing rescue. Randy, Jeff, either one of you want to comment?
Nah, that's cool. I mean, that's, yeah.
Well, you said it, TM, real American. I just wanted to see this as a gift from my fiance, my beautiful fiance. That's right.
Yeah,
so I had to get that in there.
Are you selling the real American cups now, Randy?
Maybe I should stock up, huh?
in addition to the collecting royalties, you get real American coffee cups. All right.
I'm going to tell you, that takes some real balls. You know what I mean? People think that, I don't know anybody that's dangled from a cable before, but trust me, it looks cool when you're doing it. But when you're the one on the end of that cable, man, all you're thinking about is if you hear think.
Yeah, the guys, that is a brave hero for sure. So we had multiple Guardians submit the reader story of the day. So from Andy No, Minnesota Lieutenant Governor Peggy Flanagan wore Islamic modesty coverings in a video supporting the state's Somalis. She also does an Arabic Islamic greeting. This woman previously wore the shirt Protect Trans Kids that featured a knife as a threat. This is just straight up self-inflicted genocide. But what's really crazy about this, well, I'm going to play it, minute 15 seconds. The black woman on the right side of the screen, so to the left of the brain dead lieutenant governor, literally stands there looking at this woman as her lapdog. I can't think of a better way to describe it. But this is straight up disgusting, and goes on to describe how Somalis, Ilhan Omar a couple weeks ago said Somalis are the fabric of America. No, they aren't. Not even freaking close. Well, she says something similar here.
Well, should you?
My name's Peggy Flanagan. I am the Lieutenant Governor of Minnesota, and I'm really honored and humbled to be here with all of you today. I am incredibly clear that the Somali community is part of the fabric of the state of Minnesota. I think about my friendship with Nimco. We've been friends for almost 25 years. And when I think of being part of Minnesota and growing up here, the Somali community has always been a part of my Minnesota. So I want to just encourage the community to know that we're with.
What a crock of bullshit. These are all people that were brought into the country essentially illegally by Obama, but they've always been the fabric of Minnesota.
With you. We've got your back. I am here shopping today and just encourage other folks to show up, support our Somali businesses, support our immigrant neighbors. And I know that things are scary right now. And just know that there are more people who are looking out for you. There are more people who are here to support you than you know. I will continue to stand with the Somali community to be with you and to do all I
can't listen to that shit anymore. If, as a real American, TM Randy Nance, if that offends you, put a 1 in the live chat. I'm telling you, we are at war, and people need to get it through their skull. We are at war for our country. You guys want to add anything to this shit before we do the conflict question?
You know, I was just going to say, you know, the Chinese have been here for a long time, right? We brought in a bunch to help get the railroads across the nations. And there's always been in these big towns, they have Chinatown, right? Mm-hmm. And they've somewhat helped on to their culture. But you know what? Those people work hard. They contribute to society. They've integrated for the most part. They're not trying to build their own, you know, like it's the Somalian community. No one's heard that in this country till the last 20 years because it did not exist, period.
Yeah, true story. True story. I'm assuming you don't have anything to add there, Jeff.
Well, if they ever take over, she'll be one of the first people they kill.
True story. True story. All right, so I got the right conflicted question up this time. By the way, you should see the ones on all the different platforms.
Yeah,
awesome. If you had lost all your loved ones and there was nothing else to fight for, how would you keep on surviving the apocalypse? What would drive you to keep on going if all you held dear was already gone? Jeff, I'll go to you first on this one tonight.
Well, I think it would be kind of twofold. One, I'd look for something positive to kind of hang on to. Other people, you know, helping a family, a stranger's family out, helping the kids, that kind of thing, and kind of being cold-blooded about it. But the second one might be playing Wrath of God for the evil people out there.
There you go, BFE.
Yeah.
Randy.
Well, you know, as I like to go, as you know, I like to go back to biblical terms, you know what I mean? And, you know, who was it? Job, or who was the one law, you know, it's the one guy in the Bible that, you know, God and the devil kind of went back and forth on. And so he lost everything. You know, was one of the wealthiest guys in the place and had a bunch of kids and then loses everything, you know, all the kids at once. In one day, I think, you know, lost all his money, you know, everything else that he had. And his wife just said, why don't you just curse God? But he never cursed God. And, you know, as it turns out, it was a test. As terrible as that sounds, that's what it was. And if I found myself alone in this type of situation, I would have to look at it that way. And furthermore, I still go back to the same thing when I survived this in Iraq. There's a reason I survived. I'm still here for a reason. It doesn't matter what else I lost. I am still here. So I have to continue putting one step ahead of the other because, as you know, what is my life motto? The simplest and basic of infantry tactics. Always keep moving forward, regardless of the challenges ahead. To stop is to die, ever forward.
Yeah, well said, Randy. So I would keep going. My motivation to keep going would be to pass on my knowledge to as many people as possible. You know, there's two ways of looking at it, right? Jack of all trades, master of none, or, you know, jack of all trades, master of one. are both ways that I kind of look at things. I would rather be really, really good at a handful of things than just at a whole bunch of stuff. So I've got some very specific knowledge on certain things, whether it be building construction, software, especially comms, communication related stuff. I would want to train people to get them up to my level and potentially beyond my level before I kick the bucket. So speaking of buckets, I'm being attacked here by 2 pit bulls because this stuff is crack.
You let the gig out of the bag.
Oh my God, this stuff is crack cocaine for dogs. You should see the look I'm getting right now. She's sitting here, our female rescue, Bailey. She's looking at me like, why are you holding the can?
Put them down here. No one has to get hurt here. Just lay the treats bag on the floor.
So this is, carnival dog treats. All it is freeze-dried beef and chicken. I'm telling you what, I mean, dogs go cuckoo over this shit. Like, now she's looking at me like, how come you putting the lid back on? You have to wait, okay? Anyway, I will be back Sunday evening, 7 p.m. the usual time, but on my personal podcast. So letter C, Heaven, Heaven, cheaven.substack.com. I do a show every Sunday evening that's zany news, funny shit, stuff that puts a smile on your face, because Monday through Friday we deal with some pretty heavy topics. Then the whole gang will be back on Monday evening with the next episode in our long war series. But between now and then, do me a favor, please like, share, comment, subscribe. God bless America.
God bless America.
And enjoy the closing video.
We pray for love.